can see it's spring. Mike has the roster out in front of me, so I know who everybody is. Okay, today we concluded our second spring practice, and as you know, the first 2 days are helmets and spider pads. It's really about getting them in football-related activities, installation, relative to your offense and defense. We have some new coaches certainly on the offensive side of the ball and the defensive side of the ball. So, getting them into the flow of things and, essentially how, we want the practice to look. I think our guys have done a really good job. The off-season's been really good. The attention to detail, the accountability in terms of the off-season workouts has really been outstanding, and it's carried its way into the practices. I've always said, and I'll continue to say the same thing as long as I'm coaching, when it's a player-led football team, you're always going to be in a much better situation than if the coaches have to lead everything. And this is the closest that I've had in my time here at LSU that this is a player-led football team. So those are good signs. And as I said, 2 days into it, we're trying to get, just the football activities and the technical and tactical work done, and giving our kids a sense of, what we're going to be building in terms of an identity, because each year's a new year, right? So building an identity on offense and defense and rolling in, as I mentioned, that factor of a player-led team, but now doing it within a football organization. So with that, we'll open it up to questions.
Hey, Coach, you talked about just kind of building that foundation on both sides of the ball, coaching-wise, in terms of what you want to do. What's been your impression of going in defensive staff and seeing kind of what those guys have mindset-wise and knowing what they've got experience-wise and how they've sort of put that to work here early on?
Yeah, I've really enjoyed the past 6 weeks, being in, constant contact with the defensive staff that we've assembled, Blake and certainly, everybody associated with our defensive staff. It's been, for me, very comfortable, great communicators. We're all on the same page relative to what we're teaching and how we want to teach it, evaluations and recruiting. It's been a really smooth transition. I like the way we're coaching, what we're demanding, the attention to, the real details of playing defense. And we're not getting ahead of ourselves in a sense of, understanding, the basic tenets of playing really good defense. And you can see that early on. So it's been enjoyable. I think that we're going to see a defense that's going to play with a lot of energy, a lot of excitement. I know that our guys are excited. You can see just by the way they're practicing over the last couple of days.
You talked about finding that identity on offense with a new quarterback. Does the style of play change that drastically? And how much of this spring is kind of learning what these guys can do so that you could then build the offense around what they can do?
Yeah, I think that, each year you're always going to build it around, players, not plays. So there's each year is going to have a little bit of a change. This is still going to be, about finding the best playmakers and getting them the ball like it was last year. And, Jayden is a different, Garrett is a different quarterback than Jayden. So, we'll look to do things that highlight him. So the nuances within the offense, in terms of attacking, pushing the ball down the field, having balance between the run and the pass, that's not going to change. But the players involved, we have to be able to highlight what they're good at and what their strengths are, and that's where you'll see some changes.
Ryan, just as you were going through this offseason and looking for a new offensive coordinator, what made you, end up choosing Joe Sloan to be the play caller?
Well, I think, he's been on a job interview for a couple of years. I've gotten a chance to work with him. I've been in the quarterback meeting room. That's where I sit when I get a chance to be involved. I get pulled out quite a bit. This pesky day job keeps me doing other things other than, you'd love to be able to coach a position, but you just can't with the other responsibilities that you have. So answering the question, I've been around him and I know what that position requires to be the offensive coordinator. And so I just felt like he had the leadership capabilities, the intellect, the understanding of what I was looking for in terms of our offensive identity and philosophy, and felt like it was his time. And, I think he's well supported with Cortez. I think that we've put an offensive staff around him and built an offensive line that's really going to support him with Brad and, a veteran in Frank. I just felt like the pieces and all of them in totality made this the right choice at the right time.
Coach, where would you say Shelton Sampson is right now and now entering his second year? Now that you got a couple guys going pro, and what does he have to do to get some playing time?
Yeah, I just think that Shelton has, made progress. I think that the big jump for him is the physicality of the game, where, he can use his length and size, but, he's got to be able to do it when there's hands on him. He's a guy that you don't want off the line of scrimmage. When you have to compete against him down the field, that's a problem. So, he's continuously working on releases, not getting rerouted, not getting driven out of play, and a lot of that is the physical end of the game. And he's coming on. He's getting there. Once he puts that behind him, I can see him making great strides really quickly.
Hey, Coach. I guess, how do you see the run game evolving this year? Obviously, Jayden was a one-man team last year in that respect. Just the evolution of guys like Caleb Jackson and how important it is for him to grow this year. And just how maybe you see that changing this offseason.
Yeah. Certainly, you're looking to make up for, those yards that you've lost with the Jayden Daniels. And you can do it in a number of different ways, right? You can do it with perimeter throws that Jayden gave us with perimeter runs. And you can do it not simply with the running backs, but how you use your offensive line. We think that we've got, some of the, if not one of the best, certainly one of the top offensive lines in the country. And they're athletic as well. We think our tackles can move and pull. So I think a run game that now becomes a lot more diversified in the sense that we can start moving and pulling our offensive linemen to create an offensive running game that strikes on a much wider front. And so I think certainly the running backs will play a part in this, but I think the focus needs to be much more on how the offensive line will play a much larger role in what we do to enhance our running game.
Ryan, going back to what you said about a team, a player-led team, what are some of the things you look for, and particularly, what are you seeing from these guys that you like?
I think more than anything else is that when players start pointing out to each other what the standard is and correcting them if they're not doing it the right way, then that has always led to, for me, the best teams that I've ever coached. And you can see it in so many different ways, from how they show up on time or early, to, making sure that their locker room is clean, to how they practice, and in terms of finishing drills. And when you have guys going, hey, that's not how we do it, finish the drill the right way, or we don't grab the back and tag off. And coaches don't have to point that out, and players are leading that charge. You get a sense that those things are going to continue to build, and when things get tough out on the field and players need to hold each other accountable on a big drive, or the need to come up with a big play or stop, the coaches can't run out on the field in those situations, and the players need to take care of that. That's when you get a sense that things are moving in the right direction.
Yeah, Brian, Harold Perkins Jr. really struggled last year at middle linebacker. You decided to try this again. The thought process behind that, was it your decision, Harold's wish? Was it you think Blake Baker could come up with something different for him? Just the reason to try it again.
Yeah, well, the defensive structure is different. So I think you start there. You've got a new voice. Blake is coaching the linebacker, so you have a new voice. That's different. That's the second. And then I think collectively, Harold, myself, and Blake felt like, in all instances, this is a place that is going to maximize his potential. And we certainly could keep him out at the star Sam linebacker position, but I think he can impact the defense in so many ways at the will linebacker position. And it's not just playing counter. It's not just, filling the backside, A-gap on runaway. This is the ability to, get into different looks with him, and utilizing his ability to be a multi-dimensional player. He was to the field, and you knew where he was. You knew you fanned to the field. You're going to get an extra hat to him. You could game plan to Harold Perkins, and this makes it much more difficult. And he knows the clock's ticking. There's a sense of urgency, and so I think you see a committed player, a new voice in Blake, and I believe it's his best opportunity to make that next step.
Coach, right back here, kind of a two-parter. First, you mentioned late last season that Josh Williams was one of those guys, and I imagine he's one that you were kind of alluding to being a leader. What's the value that he just brings in another year in this program? And then two, how does it help a guy like Caleb Jackson entering year two, and what have you seen from Jackson's development just as a person, character, and growing into that role?
Yeah, when you have a guy that's he's already been awarded a master's degree, I think when it comes to holding their end academically, he's a model for that. So I think that speaks for itself. And just the way he attacks the day, I mean, people can just look at, he doesn't have to say anything. You just watch how he handles himself every single day, both, outside this building and inside this building. He becomes a great role model for our younger players, not just the running backs, but for all of our younger players. So anytime you have a chance to hold on to a guy like that, and he's a really good football player too. That's for me, when you put a roster together and roster management, he's a guy you just circle and say, you can't touch him. That guy is so valuable to our football team in so many other ways, because he helps set the foundational principles and the standards within your program.
Coach, there's already enough pressure in this job. Does the 12-team playoff make it worse?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think the way it's going to, end up being, I think there'll be some more opportunities. If you don't make it, I don't think about don't making it. I think about just more opportunities from that perspective. Look, I mean, at the end of the day, I think everybody wants to see, the top teams compete in a playoff format. And I think, whether it's 12, whether it's 14, I just think it's, when you look at the two conferences that have been, primarily involved, in the SEC and the Big Ten, there's a lot of teams in those conferences. And so I think it just makes sense that number's got to be somewhere in the teens, and because there's such, I think, a following. And for me, then it becomes, all right, how many are you going to get in from each one of those conferences? And now I know as much as you guys, they're talking about 3, maybe on some years you get 4 in. I think, if I was taking this job with the idea of, hey, I just want to be a top 3 team, that's not why I took this job. I took it because I wanted to be the top team. So I don't see that as more pressure. I think it's more access than anything else.
Hey, Coach, over here, 2 questions. First, going back to Blake Baker, remembering what he did with Damone Clark, how much does that play into the factor of confidence of what he can do with Harold Perkins? And secondly, you talked about the excitement. What do you see with Corey Redmond back in the defensive backs and the excitement they may have being under his tutelage?
Yeah, I mean, there's no question that, Clark has proven to be, a really good pro and certainly had a great career here. And Blake was part of that, and because Damone's already been back, and I've gotten a chance to talk to him about, Blake and what he meant to him. So, clearly that has excited, our linebackers as well. When you bring back Damone and he talks about his experiences, they're excited about that. So, those kinds of situations are always, beneficial. But it's a new group of guys. He's got to go and do it all over again, and he knows that. As it relates to Corey, I've been really happy with Corey's attention to detail, his interaction with the defensive backs in particular. We've got, as you know, a number of guys and some new players that J.K. is out there new, and Jair is new. I mean, and then all of the other freshmen that are now sophomores that he had no idea who they were. So he's got a whole group of guys that he's had to reintroduce himself to. And I think he's done a really good job from that perspective. And, everybody talks about his recruiting, and it's outstanding. But I think what I've been impressed with is his ability to engage and connect with the players that are here. Sometimes you got to keep this in mind. Our job is to go out and certainly, recruit, but we have to, engage our players as well and build relationships, because we want to be able to retain them. and retention is huge as we develop, right? And then look towards success. And so, you don't want this reputation that all I do is recruit, right? Because then the guy that's on campus thinks you don't care too much about him. You just care about the next guy you're going to go recruit. And I didn't see that. I haven't seen that at all with Corey. Corey is focused about the guys that he's got on campus. He's engaged with them very well and has built strong relationships with them. And he can still go out and recruit. And that's a solid guy for me.
I guess the last couple of years, but certainly this past year, Greg Clayton could just fair catch the ball, and the number 1 offense got it back. When you look at special teams now, how important is 10, 12, 8, 15 yards on a punt return? And have you seen Xavion catching any punts yet?
We have not, but again, we think he's capable of doing that. But that wasn't the primary reason that we went out and got Xavion. We got him because of his speed, his maturity, his ability to bring SEC experience. Him and CJ, we wanted to bring 2 experienced, mature players into a group with Kyron Lacey, with some younger players. And if he can do the other jobs, that's great too. Look, I'm not going to minimize punt returns, but I think the leading punt returner in the country was like 8 yards. I mean, it's hard with rugby punting and everybody releasing down the field. In college football, the punt return game is virtually non-existent. And so, I mean, we were even, we had some discussions even in the SEC about, I mean, how do you get it back in the game? Do you go to the NFL model where you can't leave until the ball's kicked, to give these guys an opportunity, to return some kicks? Because everything's got to be fair caught because you got a million guys around you before you can even return things. So Xavier is going to be a nice addition to our offense. He will get an opportunity to win that job. And if he can do some really good things for us in punt return, that'd be awesome. But again, I think the most important thing for us is his impact on the offense as a wide receiver. All right, thank you.